Hey guys, Paulie from the Complete Personal Training Podcast and Meldrum Performance Coaching. Today, the Deltcast. So we're talking about training the deltoids for hypertrophy, for athleticism, for strength, and let's clear up some common misconceptions on deltoid training. So first thing, when we look at deltoids for hypertrophy, we need to first identify what we're training. So we've got three parts of a delt. We've got the anterior, the lateral, or medial. Doesn't matter really what you call it. I used to get really funny about people calling it medial. Who cares? There's bigger problems in the world than that. And the posterior delts. So the first thing is anterior delt work. For most people, from a physique point of view, it doesn't need too much individualized isolation work in most cases, because the muscles do get quite challenged by pressing volume. So if you're doing a fair amount of bench press and incline work, you're going to get pretty good delt stimulus. It doesn't mean you don't have to do it, but you want to pick exercises that challenge it well. So generally shoulder presses work and cable raise work generally better than a dumbbell raise, just because of the different line of pull and the different arc that you can get. The next muscle, the lateral or medial deltoid, that is one muscle that can take a ton of volume, really easy to stimulate with tons of different exercises. Looking at cables are probably going to be your best bet for training that for hypertrophy. Of course, you can really emphasize the lengthened, the mid-range, and the shortened position for the deltoid. For the posterior delt, this is a muscle that's pretty poorly trained. What we need to look at in this one is identifying where the arm path needs to be for an individual to get the most kind of posterior delt activation. So a rear delt row is generally a better exercise than a rear delt fly in most cases. Rear delt row is really good because you can create a lot of stability, versus a rear delt fly, you don't really have that much stability unless you go on a machine, and you can really create a lot of force output there. For the delts, we're going to focus on lateral and posterior here. What we generally find is they respond to a higher rep range. So if you're doing lateral raises for sets of 5 to 6, you're really not going to be doing too many good things for the shoulder, but sets of 12, 15, 20, you're going to do some really good things to those muscle groups. They're kind of like a mixed fiber type, so they're going to get the best amount of stimulus. Another thing with delt work is, if you really want to stimulate delts properly, we need to let the scapula move correctly. So a lot of people will do delt work by retracting their shoulder blades and lifting up to take their upper trapezius out of the movement. The upper trapezius contributes to the movement, and there's nothing wrong with it contributing. What we want to do is actually encourage a better upward rotation of the scapula. So with a delt raise, say the arms out to the side, we want to push out as we lift to make sure that the delt gets better stimulation from that scapula rotating. The next thing with our lateral raises is to also make sure that and also our overhead presses, is they happen in what's called the scapular plane. So the scapular plane is the angle that the scapula sits on relative to our rib cage. And if we have a look at our rib cage, we realize it's not a square structure. It's got a nice convex curve. So what we want to do with our lateral raises is we want to actually bring the arm up in the angle that sits along the same line of pull as the scapula. And what that's going to do is going to allow the muscles of the delt to work far more effectively. It's going to reduce any kind of impingement in the front of the shoulder, and it's going to allow for a much higher stimulus and lower fatigue ratio, which means that you're going to get more positive results out of each rep you do, but then also you're going to get less negative results at the same time as well. Now for strength, generally our deltoids, we're going to be using them more as something for improving our bench press or our upper pressing exercises. So if that's the scenario, what we want to do is look at kind of like our barbell work as being our main bread and butter for that. But for delt work, they can really respond well to explosive work, so higher tempos, in faster tempos, explosive works like push press, push jerks, etc. Generally, we'll find our delts are very rarely going to be the limiting factor in the strength move. But if you are struggling to bench press, have a look at the military press. If you haven't done it for a while and your military press is pretty average compared to your bench press, then bringing up your military will bring the bench press up straight away. Now, for athleticism and the delts, it's not too big a deal. Most like lower body sports, running, dominant type thing, most sports are lower body dominant. So the deltoids don't really need anything special for that. What they do need to do is, for the shoulder, is it needs to be trained for stability. The shoulder joint is quite mobile, but it can lose stability in a lot of situations. So perturbation drills where you're holding a position and you got to resist the force or move against that. Anything where you challenge the integrity of the joint while moving the rest of the body through a great range of motion or resist the perturbation are really good ideas for athletic-based performance for the delts. So guys, that's it for delts. They're not like a super complex muscle group. It's for hypertrophy training, it's more about really getting the ideal execution on each of the lifts that you're looking for. And for strength training, they can get trained hard and heavy. For athletic performance and things like that, it's looking at challenging the stability in different positions, either through positional movement or through perturbation. The other thing with delts is they do make they really do improve the shape of the arm and the physique. And for a sporting perspective, making yourself look more imposing can also be a pretty good idea to intimidate the competition for the psychological aspect of competing in sport. So guys, that's the delts. What we're going to talk about tomorrow is we're going to talk about the shoulder and how it kind of works functionally and how we can use our efforts to prehabilitate, rehabilitate, and improve the function of the shoulder in the long term for our clients. Any questions, guys? Hit me up. Thanks heaps to whoever was watching me in England yesterday. Someone watched like 70 episodes of the podcast, which is awesome. Any questions? Let me know, guys. Speak soon.